Good afternoon, everyone. All About the Gyro here. This is a recorded video that I've done off away from the live Twitch stream. Topic is how multiclass and GT3 racing is going to change going forward in iRacing. What I've done is I've put a chart together of what the current series of multiclass plus GT3 racing, with the exclusion that there's no one-off series, like the Ferrari Fix, for example, the Touring Car Challenge. Just for the record, with the new changes coming up, I'm thinking the Ferrari Fix goes into C, keep the Touring Car Challenge in D. As you see at the top, you have the licenses, DCBA. And I've gone and gathered all the cars that are used. One of the things that I realized in this is there are some cars here that may be going away at the beginning of 2021. The reason for that is we have confirmation that the Lexus GT3 has been scanned. And the other bit of it too is rumor has it that there may be an Aston Martin GT3 and a Porsche 911 GT3 that may have also been scanned. I haven't verified those two yet, but I definitely have confirmation on the Lexus from multiple sources. So let's look at this and see what will happen. Currently, if you are a D licensed driver, you have three options to race in multi-class. You have the SynLab Production Car Challenge, which is your first introduction into multi-class racing. And I've started to become more and more of a fan of this for newly minted rookies that have their D license that's trying to, they're interested in multi-class. It's a good training ground. Most of the races are 25 minutes. You do have a couple that run a little bit longer than that, but really a great series for new people to multi-class racing to drive in using often a Mazda or a Jetta. That's a familiar car. Cannot recommend it enough. Also in D, you have the Global Challenge. Now, it's in red because it's using cars that aren't used very much versus the cars in the subset. The Cadillac and the Kia, not too many people on the whole look at this as a viable multi-class series. The Kia is front wheel drive and I think 370 horsepower. The Cadillac is in that neighborhood but drives very differently. It's rear wheel drive, the Kia is front wheel drive. Not too many people race it. I don't know if this series would even continue. Put it that way. But here's the first interesting fact that I discovered. You can race a GT3 car in Class D in multi-class, and that's the Nürburgring Endurance Championship. They have 4-hour races at the Nürburgring that's scheduled at regular intervals throughout the year. So because of that, you can, as a D licensed driver, get your fix, so to speak, in drive in multi-class in a GT3 car, and it's at the Nürburgring. So that right there I find very interesting. Just because you have an avenue to drive. Now the problem is you're driving pretty much the same circuit. It's a 4-hour enduro. But look at the variety of cars. You can drive the Z4. You can drive the Merc. You can drive the Audi R8. You can drive the 991. I think that's the rough car, if memory serves. You can drive the Porsche Cayman GT4 car. You can drive the Mazda, and you can drive the Audi TCR. That is a very rich, diverse race if I ever saw one, because you have the GT3 category, you have the Porsche 991 category, you have the Porsche GT4 category, you have the Mazda category, and you have the Audi category. Pretty big stuff. I don't expect any changes in D with regards to this. The C license is really where the differentiation is going to start. The Michelin Pilot Series, that is the other IMSA series. Not a lot of people realize it's sponsored by Michelin. You have the Porsche GT4, the the BMW GT4, and the Audi TCR. It's multi-class. 30-minute races. It's a good length. It has some value to it. The issue is that this series right now is being overlooked because everyone wants to get into GT3 racing. Well, IMSA sports car. Current lineup, the R8 and the Merc for your GT3 classes, which have been decimated with the LMP2 arriving. And then for GTE, you have the new Vet, the M8 Beamer, the Ferrari 488 GTE, and the Porsche 911. You are at your cap at 7 cars. Keep that in mind for a little bit further down the video. The Fanatec GT and the Camel GT uses cars that, yes, it is multi-class, but it's not really mainstream vis-a-vis the other ones. But here's the other interesting part of C license, the iRacing Endurance Series. You have the TCR. So if you have a TCR, you can drive in D and C in multiple series. Good value for car, and you have the Touring Car Challenge. You only have to buy one car, and you will have plenty of racing excitement. You have the Porsche GT4 again. Same argument can be made. But then here's the first appearance of the Ferrari 488 GT3. And it rivals the Merc GT3. That's right. If you get an Audi R8, you cannot race in this 3-hour endurance series. You have to use either the Ferrari 488 GT3, which if you don't do the Ferrari fixed, this is your first exposure to it, and the Merc. No Audi. And you have the BMW M8 and you have the Porsche 911. Very interesting cross section of cars. And now we're going to go into the B category. So the VRS GT Sprints and Endurance use the same cars. You see your first appearance of the McLaren, your first appearance since the Nürburgring of the BMW Z4, and now you see the Ford GT3 for the first time. You have the Merc, which I misspelled as Mark. Yay, copy paste failure. We'll fix that. You have the Audi R8, and then you have the Ferrari 488 GT3 also shows up here. So if you count that, that's 6 spots. iRacing can have 7 cars. So if the Lexus GT3 comes, don't be surprised if it shows up here in these 2 series right here. Plus in IMSA, as I will get to in a moment. For ILMNS, you have both of the LMP1s, you have the LMP2, and then your 4 GTE cars are the Ford, the Ferrari 488 GTE, the Porsche 911, and the Vet, the new Vet GTE. Now let's look at what's going to happen beyond, and I'm going to say what cars may be going. In 2021 season 1, basically after December 1, there's a question mark about the iRacing Endurance Series because in the announcement they didn't include it. So it's not confirmed if that's also being moved up to B, but if not, that series, because it's a 3-hour series, you may not get the jump of participation per se. But it is very clear to me that the C license, the Michelin Pilot, is the preferred series. And for IMSA that sponsors it, Michelin that sponsors it, it's the right decision. You have branding opportunities all over it. You're going to see a lot of folks hitting Pilot because they can't drive their GT3 cars anymore because they are not a B license. Shifting over, you see the IMSA sports car moves over to B. VRS Sprints and Endurance, that hasn't been announced that that's moving to A. So there is some question marks about whether it's going to stay in B. And then the Le Mans Series and the Endurance Le Mans Series shift over to the right into A. So there's definitely a bit of a flattening out that has happened in the Endurance Series. Now for the car choices. Assuming the Lexus GT3 gets put in, when you look at the lineup for IMSA, the Merc GT3 is still actively being drove. The Audi R8 actively being drove. Right now, at the time of recording, the 24 hours of spa is going on, and you see the Merc was in the lead in the first hour, being chased by the Audi's R8. But it would really be nice to have a third option. That means you got to take away one of the GTEs. The question is, which one do you take away? Here's where there's a very strong argument for parallelism. In the iRacing Endurance Series, you have the M8 and the 911 as your two options. Those have to stay. That leaves the Ferrari 488 GTE and the Vet as the last car. And the Vet is very popular, and it's an American car. It's an American road racing series. If I'm having to put the Lexus in, and you should have 3 options in GT3, 3 options in GTE. One of these cars has to go in. Now, the Ferrari 488 is the most approachable car there is for GTE racing. You cannot get rid of it. The Vet, very popular. I would be inclined to take out the BMW M8. And now you have the Vet, the Ferrari, and the Porsche. You have 3 very different type of cars. And the BMW M8 now goes into your iRacing Endurance Series and into the Le Mans Series. Stay with me now. The Lexus can go easily into the VRS Sprints and Endurance. It takes the 7th slot. But the Ford GT3 should disappear. It's not raced anymore officially in live racing. Take it out, and that way you have a slot so that if you have the Porsche 911 GT3 show up, it can go here because the Porsche is a very challenging car to drive. It makes sense to put it here if the rumor is true. Now, the elephant in the room is where we're going to put the Austin, because if you scan the Aston, and that's also GT3, you're now one over, and all of those cars, with the exception of the Ford GT3, is raced in earnest. Referring back to Spa, you see the McLarens are out there. The Ferraris are out there. Giancarlo Fisichella is driving the Sky-sponsored Ferrari. Now, I didn't see the BMW Z4. I think they may be using the M6 for this, but I did see some Beamers. I'll have to check my notes on that. So take out the Ford, put in the Lexus, and then you got to decide where we're going to put the Aston, assuming it comes in as a GT3 car. If the Aston comes in as a GTE car, there's no problem. Look down at ILMS. You have 7 options right now. It may be time to sunset the hybrids. Sunset the hybrids, put in, assuming the Aston's GTE. Now you have the prototypes and you have a nice suite of GTEs. You're good to go. So I wouldn't be surprised if the hybrids, at least one of them gets dropped to make room. The Ford GT3 is definitely on the chopping block. And then the real hard one is the IMSA one, because you have the Porsche 911 RSR in the iRacing Endurance Series. It makes sense to keep it. But the Ferrari 488 GTE is nowhere else listed in C. Either the M8 or the 488 GT is probably the one that's going to go to make room for that new Lexus GT3. So you have 3 options in GT3, 3 options in GTE. In the prototype, you've hit your magic 7. Crazy times. I'm very happy that they're doing the license increases. I am hopeful as well that they look at the corners per incident as well. There should not be an iRating floor. That is bad for business. Anyway, I'm going to call it good here. It looks like I will be staying home next week, so normal service is resumed. Take care, everybody, and make sure you take care of yourself and one another. God bless.